Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Wednesday, the 23rd of March. Today I'd like to talk about a little hobby horse of mine that some people disagree with me on, but I think they're nuts. So there you go. My little hobby horse is children in church. When I was growing up, I still do. My sister Anna is 9 years younger than me, and when we were living in in Niagara Falls, we went to a church there. And really great priest, Father John Blair, and his wife Nan, who just adored Anna, called her Pickle Puss. But my mom was in the altar guild, and one day she was in the church, in the sanctuary, taking care of the altar guild and doing things. And Anna wandered up there with her, and she was about 4 years old at the time. And one of the older, well-meaning but older ladies came up and scolded my mother and removed Anna from the sanctuary because it wasn't a place for children. Well, the only thing that kept Anna from coming back to church from then on was Nan and Pickle Puss. Nan would pull her over the pew and they would talk to each other and talk about Anna's patent leather shoes and her beautiful little dresses. And Nan sort of saved church for Anna for a little while anyway, because that well-meaning but old-fashioned woman who informed my mother in no uncertain terms that the sanctuary was no place for a child just about undid the little bit of learning that Anna had already absorbed about who God is. Think of it this way. If we talk about going to someone's house and we talk about how awesome this person is, we're going to go to Aunt Phoebe's house. And Aunt Phoebe is the most amazing person. She has these incredible homemade cookies she always puts out, and she even lets the little kid drink tea from her china. It's really milked down, but she lets them drink their tea from their china cups. Aunt Phoebe's house is going to be someplace with lots of great memories, and someplace that child is going to want to go and tell her friends about, and everybody, let them know. But if she goes to Aunt Phoebe's house and there's somebody there always smacking her fingers and telling her she's a bad girl and she shouldn't do that, even though Aunt Phoebe has said everything's totally cool, what do you think that child is going to think about going to Aunt Phoebe's house? She might be confused. She might think, but Aunt Phoebe wants me to be there, and I love Aunt Phoebe, and she's an incredible person and treats me really well, but that other person makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel like there's something wrong with me, makes me feel unwelcome. How long do you think it's going to take before that child doesn't want to go to Aunt Phoebe's house? Well, I think the same thing happens with the house of God. The church is the house of God. It is the place, not where God resides, because God is, wherever we go, God is. God is in all of God's creation. But the church is that sort of place where we talk about going to talk to God. Again, it's not the only place, but that's just the traditional way of speaking about the church. We're going to talk to God. We're going to worship God. We're going to sing to God. We're going to offer God our praises at the church. If church is a place that is austere and dark and cold and shh all the time, do you think children are really going to have a positive sense of what church is? Or who God is? If God becomes associated with the old people saying shh, or the young people shushing, at that, how quickly do you think a child will stop thinking that it's okay to pray to God, to talk to God, if they're always being told they have to be quiet around God, in God's house? Or what about all the beautiful things? We have these beautiful stained glass windows. Behind me, there's a stained glass window, and it's just incredibly dark blue on the top, and then there's light blue and then white. And when the sun comes through it, it's just absolutely glorious, and it sends different lights and sparkles across the carpet and the wood of the chancel steps. And the altar, and we have a beautiful stained glass window behind the altar here of Jesus standing on the prairies with a grain elevator and wheat and flowers and bread in his hand and clouds in the sky. If a child sees that stained glass window is going to catch their imagination, and their sense of who Jesus is will be informed by that. But if they're told they're not allowed to go near it, if they're told they can't possibly go up there because it's too holy for them or too special for them, they're going to understand what you're saying or why you're saying it, that you're worried they're going to spill the wine or knock over a candle. They're going to think that what you're saying is that Jesus is too special for them. that they're not welcome. So I think we really need to do some work on how we talk to our kids and how we allow kids to be in the church. I hope we've come a long way from making sure that our living rooms are places we never let anyone go unless the pastor comes over. I've never actually known anybody who saves their living room for the pastor to come over. I usually get invited to the kitchen table, and that is totally okay with me. I like that. But I think we're beyond that now. We also shouldn't be child-proofing our churches, making sure, running around and putting soft corners on soft round bumpers on all the corners, and not letting them run up near the candles. Yes, we should have a healthy sense of presence, that if children are near the candles, there's an adult there as well, that things don't get knocked over. But the fact is, what happens if they do? So a brass candlestick gets a nick in it. So what if there's a little fire? Well, that could be an issue, but if something gets singed, as long as no person gets hurt, we can deal with it. We can handle it. It's how we react to that little accident that happens. If a child comes up and knocks over a candle and I completely freak out, again, that child is now scared of me, scared of the fire, the candle, scared of this place that they're in. But if it happens and I say, oh, you got to be careful there, let's just put that out, we'll stand that back up and we won't touch that again. Whole different response, isn't it? The child is going to learn something completely different about what it is to make a mistake in God's house. Mistakes happen. Accidents happen. It's okay. You're forgiven. Isn't that what this place is all about anyway? Forgiveness? Well, over the years, I have been blessed with kids. There was a little guy named Matthew when I was in Sarnia, and he was born premature, and he had a beautiful little sister, older sister, Nadine. And when Nadine would come to church, and when they finally brought her brother home and we baptized him, he was the honey, the darling of the whole church. These two little kids took this group of old people, for the most part, and softened their hearts and helped them to recognize a completely way of being church. And then when I was in Halifax, there was a little boy named Eli, and he had a cousin named Jackson. And then there was Katie, my friend Katie. All different stages. So Katie would be I think she's probably about 13 now. And Jackson, I think, was a year, maybe she's 14, and Jackson was a year or two younger than Katie. And then Eli came to us as a baby with his grandmother, who was his guardian. And Eli grew up in the church. Eli would run up to me and throw his arms around my legs, and I'd have my vestments on, and I'd get a bear hug around the knees because Eli was happy to be at church. Church was a place where he had family, where he was loved, where everyone adored him and watched him grow. At times during sermons, I would stop because Eli and Jackson and Katie would be down coloring and just chatting to themselves. And often what they chatted about would be things like God or things that they'd heard us say in the church service that we weren't really aware that they were paying attention to. And then one beautiful day, we had Katie as a server, and we had to get a little child's robe and tie it up nice and tight for her so she wouldn't trip on it. But she carried the wooden cross because the big gold brass cross was too heavy for her. But she was pleased as punch to be able to be our crucifer. And then she helped me to set the table. Now lots of people, older people who are used to a certain way of, only adult servers get to do things, were very upset about that. But the way that Katie came forward to give me the chalice and the paten, to present me with the bread and the wine, help me to pour them and count out the bread, and how she handled these things, she knew in a way that the adults had forgotten how holy these things were, the holy hardware. And one day, Eli had wandered up, and I told his grandma, don't worry if he comes, I can keep an eye on him. When he came up, we had a massive chancel, so where the choir would sit if they had been at the front, it was just huge. And he came climbing up the stairs and came up and came through underneath the altar rail, and he came up behind the altar. And all you could see, the congregation could see, was this tiny little blonde head, just the tip of his head over the top of the altar. And he stood up there, and what people couldn't see was that every movement I made with my hands as I was celebrating the Eucharist, he was mimicking me, he was watching me, and whatever I did, he did. If I made the sign of the cross, Eli made the sign of the cross. Children get it. They understand what it is to be in God's house. And now I have this incredible gift at St. Mary's, the gift of Chance. Chance is this beautiful little ginger-headed boy who has a beautiful smile and a heart of gold. And he has helped me a couple of times in church. And he's a little bit young, he's not quite 3, and he doesn't really understand what it is we're doing. And I don't think he's able yet to grasp that what we're doing is connected to God and Jesus. But what he does get is that he's been invited to help. He has a place here in this church. Before he's even 3 years old, he has a place, a home of his own that he knows isn't just his mom's or his grandma's or his auntie's. It's his. And isn't that what this church is all about? A place that every one of us can say comfortably, it's my home with God. So let's not shush the kids anymore. Let's teach them how to be respectful, but let's not respect them out of the building. Let's learn from them and discover the many, many ways that Jesus really was right when he said, "Come to me as a child." Because when we do that, when we come like Matthew or Nadine or Eli or Jackson or Katie or like Chance, when we come like that, we come with open hearts, hearts that are open to being filled with the love of Christ, the forgiveness that God gives us. And it means that our lives are back on the right track. So let's welcome the children to our churches, welcome them to our homes, and let them always know that where God is, they are welcome. And by the way, so are you. Have a great day. God bless you, and I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel on Thursday.